Everybody wants to be married, but everybody doesn't want to do what it takes to be married.
Right.
Because everyone starts off being single.
Yes, very much so.
So if you suck at being single, you're probably going to suck at being in a relationship. So why not start there? Why not start at our singleness? And so we have someone here today that is going to talk to us from a male's perspective about what it means to be single and saved.
Welcome to the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil
and Renee, where amazing things happen. Our goal is to help build, repair, and restore healthy relationships.
Our primary focus is on the marriage relationship. However, the topics are applicable to the relationships that we value most. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.
And we have a little bit of history with our guest, Geoff Dudley. And what we wanted to say, just kind of full disclosure, this is someone that we have watched grow up. We were there at his very first sermon. I think he actually preached a message to a bunch of youth groups that was really, really awesome.
That they actually got together and did it themselves.
Yeah, they did. So he has been doing this for a little while now. And he actually graduated high school with our daughter.
Yeah.
So that's an awesome thing. So we just like to welcome Geoff Dudley to the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil and Renee.
Yes, very excited to be with you all. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You all's relationship and just watching it through social media and how you have made such an impact is just a beautiful thing. So thank you once again for this opportunity. Very excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you here,
Absolutely. So, and actually, that actually kind of leads us into, I have a good question to start with that you just mentioned social media, but why don't you tell our audience who Geoff Dudley is, a little bit of Geoffrey Dudley. I'm sorry, I won't call you Jeff. Feel free to correct me, but tell our audience a little bit about who you are and so they can have a good picture of who we're talking to.
Yes, would love to. So I think a good way to describe me is a person who is dedicated to family. I am a family man at heart. I've got that from my father. He's really dedicated to his family, wanting to spend time with his loved ones. And that really encompasses who I am. And it's a part of my belief and value system, just believing that those who are closest to you are the ones that will be there through thick and thin. I know everyone doesn't have a perfect family, but for me, I'm really just a family man. PK, pastor's kid. And for those of you that are already thinking, oh, well, I heard pastor's kids are the worst, I debunk that myth now. I don't know if you all have heard that saying, but that's always a saying that people say, we're not the worst. We just go through things like everyone else. So PK and family man at heart.
So are you active in the ministry now with your dad?
Yes. So I am the young adult pastor of New Life in Christ Church in O'Fallon, Illinois. And I enjoy serving them. I've been serving as young adult pastor officially for about 3 years and just really have enjoyed shepherding the flock.
Oh, that's awesome.
Tending to the sheep. So it's been a very enriching and powerful, transformative experience for me to see young adults grow and mature in Christ.
And that is awesome. It reminded me of do you recall the very first message that you taught at that youth?
I do. That when you said that, it brought back so many memories. I remember sitting in where I was staying at the time, working on that message, and I was working so hard. I was trying to make sure that it was good and, really just working through it. And I was so nervous, but God still moved. And I think he was glorified during that time just because of our hearts and willingness to serve. But I do remember that such a great time that we had in that moment.
Yeah, it really was. And that kind of leads me into the first question that I want to kind of get your take on, because the way this actual show came about is as a young single man and a believer and follower of Christ. That is not necessarily a rarity, but that's something that we wanted to bring to the forefront and talk about, because later on, Renee is going to be doing a show to get the single women's perspective. And so we wanted to so in this time, we actually the guys get to go first. So Renee is going to be here and she's going to be chiming
I'm going
in.
to be like a fly on the wall.
Well, I'll see how long that lasts. You know she's going to jump in there.
But it'll be a talkative fly.
And we are, just for full disclosure, we are I'm twice your age. I'll just leave it at that. So I said you graduated with my daughter. So, and I've been married almost 31 years. So this is a unique opportunity for me because me and Renee were just talking about how dating in this time and in this season and in this generation can be very challenging from my perspective. But that's one of the great opportunities we have with you, is to bring you on to talk about how it really is in the community as a single man, and even if you are dating, to get your perspective on it. But the first question I want to actually throw out there, you mentioned it in your introduction about social and social media specifically. And that's a real big thing going on right now in our community and in our lives. How you said you watched us through social media and watched our relationship. But how do you think social media plays, or what kind of impact that it plays on dating in today's generation?
Oh, it's huge. Honestly, to be completely real, most of the relationships that I have cultivated over the past couple of years with young ladies of the opposite sex, I have found that they have come directly from social media. You know, I've reconnected with some of the young ladies that I used to know in high school, and social media has brought us back together. So it has not only done wonders for my ministry and been able to help me to promote that, but it's helped me personally just connect with people. And I think that is of course, that's the core of what social media is to connect people. But I think I have been able to really see and witness and live that out firsthand.
Right. So that you talk about, that's an awesome point to make about how it connects you to people that you may have lost touch with, or that you can reattach or reconnect with, and kind of get an updated perspective on what they're doing with their lives now. What have you seen, if you have, from your experience, even as a young pastor now, some of the negatives that have come out of that too, as it relates to relationships and through social media, that people that not only may be dating, but if they are just connecting with other people?
Yes, it can definitely be toxic in a lot of different ways. I think what I've seen most is there's always this desire to want to promote your relationship too soon. There's just this hunger for that affirmation for the social media community, to put that stamp and that label of, oh, great job, you're in a relationship, awesome. And so what I've witnessed is that, okay, I'm putting my relationship out there and I'm telling people, you know, we're dating and everything is going well. But then a couple weeks or maybe a month or two later, you don't see that person. And then there's this underlying motive behind their post that basically says that they broke up. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's just this unhealthy desire for that affirmation in terms of when young women, young men get with or connect with each other and they're dating, there's just this unhealthy motive and desire to want to get affirmation. And then it ultimately, I think, aids in the decay of the relationship. Because that's a deeper issue than just, okay, I want other people to affirm me. That's a whole deeper thing that, you know, we can talk about all night. But that's a big problem that I've seen.
And that's a good point that you mentioned, that affirmation part, when it pertains to establishing even younger relationships, or any relationships for that matter. Would you say that because of your strong family life and your dad, like you just mentioned, being a big influence, and even your mom being a big influence, that affirmation starts with and kind of spills over into the relationships that people have as they grow up and even move into the dating cycle?
Definitely. I think if you cannot say with at least a bit of confidence, a percentage of confidence, that you feel validated and affirmed, not only in your household, in your faith tradition, or whatever holds you up, if you cannot firmly say that you are affirmed by your creator, your God, Jesus Christ, if you can't really say that you are affirmed by him and him only, then even your family will not be able to give you that affirmation that you deserve and need. They may be able to give it to you to an extent, but you will not be able to really be confident in who you are in the image of God that he's created you. You won't be able to be confident in that because you always look for someone to pat you on the back and to tell you good job. And the reality of it is that's not what the world is. No one is always going to pat you on the back. Now with social media, just as you're saying, we have likes, we have comments, we have people can share your posts, people can do all these different things, which is a form of that affirmation. But it's almost like the old adage I heard on I listen to Christian rap, and one of the lines that he says, the flesh is never satisfied on one of the songs.
Okay, it's awesome that you mentioned a rap because I remember a CD that you dropped when y'all were in high school.
Yeah, I remember him being.
Do you remember it?
Oh man, you open it up, the closet.
It's okay because you know what? It's so funny when you said, as soon as you said rap, I remember the CD and I wish I still had it because it was actually really good. You and a couple of other young men that I think you were in high school together that y'all put out. Do you remember it?
Yes, we were in high school. The name of the group was GOE, God Over Everything. That was an amazing time in my life for many different reasons. We dropped a couple, 2 or 3 CDs, and we just had a great time. It was a bunch of fun.
And now I may take a little sidebar. Do you still have some of the audio tracks? We can talk offline because I would still like to get it. I'm serious. I would like to get those.
Okay. Yes, I do. I can send those to you. I definitely can.
And this is another good part. Now that I got you online, I'm gonna get you on recording. And if you want, I can actually use that as our outro music on your episode.
Ooh. That would be cool. I'm totally down. If you feel about it, we can do it. I love it.
I'm serious. We do because it's so funny. We just interviewed Babby Mason. Her episode is coming up here in a couple next week. And we actually used her music. So we've used a couple of people's music as the outro. So we'll definitely profile it on your episode.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be awesome. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you were making a point about rap. That was a sidebar, y'all. We're talking to Geoffrey Dudley on the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil and Renee. We're talking about being young, Christian, single from a man's perspective on this episode. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your last comment that you were making before I...
Yes, you're fine. And, I'm just talking about how, he was saying in this lyric, the flesh is never satisfied. And if we don't, as believers and leaders and sons and daughters of God, if we don't have a firm foundation in our own identity in him, then the affirmation and the validation that comes from society, family, job, all of these other areas and spheres that we are a part of and participate in on a daily basis, they will not be able to fulfill us because there's only one affirmation that matters, and that's what comes from heaven.
Well, I want you to give me an example, Geoffrey, of what that would look like to someone. If they're saying, okay, I hear that and I want that, what would be something you would tell the people that they would need to physically do?
Yeah, so that is a great, beautiful question. One of the things that really has impressed upon my heart over really the past couple of months, specifically a little bit after my birthday in January, I felt a sense and a pull from God. And really what he was saying to me was that I did not have intimacy with him. And he pointed me to a verse, a scripture that just changed how I view intimacy and really just shifted my perspective on relationships, specifically, not only with God, but with others as well. And it is Revelation 3:20, and then others that I can mention later on in our conversation. But he says, here I stand at the door and knock. And then he says, I will come in and eat with you. And this beautiful picture of intimacy that he is painting for us in his word, where he says, okay, your work, all of that is good. What you do, your purpose, your job, your your bank account, all of these different things, great things. But here I am, I'm standing, beckoning, and I'm calling you because I just want to have time with you. I want to invest into this relationship. I want to invest into our connection because that's what matters most to me. It's not the big house. It's not the new car. These things are great. It's not like they're bad things, but I want to invest in what's important to me, and that's time. So spending time with God in that intimacy, that alone time with you and him, that's step number one.
Yes.
And that's an excellent point that you mentioned about intimacy, because I want you to talk a little bit about intimacy in the dating cycle, because sometimes, and it's not just your generation, I think it's a human condition that we sometimes confuse sexual relationships with intimacy. And especially in a time that we're in right now, where those lines are so blurred to where they think they're being intimate, but it really is lacking intimacy when they're into a sexual relationship, and especially when you're just in the dating phase. Can you talk a little bit about that from the perspective of your generation and how you see it?
Definitely. It's misconstrued right now on so many different levels. Just to echo what you've already said, there is this idea that intimacy is built upon the physical attraction, and it is built upon the sex, and it is built upon the sexting, or whatever you want to call it in this day and age. There's so many different things coming, Gen Z, millennials, we have these different languages that we're using now to put labels on it. But I think what needs to happen, especially for believers, is that we've got to help this generation to reprogram their idea of what intimacy is. And it is not solely the connection that you get when you are engaging in intercourse and what comes with that, because that's a monster in and of itself. Not a bad thing, but in the right context, of course, it is good. But intimacy, in my mind, in my perspective, what intimacy really is conversation. It's not limited to that, but it's conversation. It's getting to know the deep parts of the other person that you're speaking to, who you're engaging in conversation with. I've even with my dad, as we've had a very close relationship and have grown, I've learned more about him over this quarantine than I have in the past 10 years of me knowing him. And that's because we've spent time just connecting and just talking as father and son. So that intimacy can be conversation that is very impactful.
And it's awesome that you say that. And I want to ask you a little bit of a personal question, and then It will lead into my follow-up question. Are you in a committed relationship right now with someone?
I am not in a committed relationship. I do have a friend, and I'm learning several different lessons in that friendship as well.
Okay.
But as of now, no.
Okay, so then my follow-up question to that, since you're basically a single Christian man trying to do the right thing and live the right life, I want you to give me your definition and the purpose of dating.
Okay, beautiful. So I think I can be kind of different when it comes to this in some aspects, because I personally don't like to waste time. And I've got to know from day one, I have got to know, what is the purpose of this? That's number one. To set up this point that I'm about to make. Okay. Number one is, what is the purpose of what we're doing? I've got to set that up. That has got to be number one, because what happens so many times in relationships is or in the dating relationships, or the phases leading up to dating, is that, we're texting, we're talking, but there's no real course of direction. We haven't charted out a plan of what we want to do or how we want to grow together. We're just kind of there. And then one thing leads to another. And then now we are doing things that are unhealthy and in toxic relationships. But for me, I feel like I date to marry. So in the dating phase, if we want to call it dating or courtship or whatever your language is, personally, if I'm dating you, if I'm investing my time, my treasure, all of those things that come along with that relationship, if I'm investing that, you can expect that within the next year or two, or however long our process is, I'm going to ask you to marry me. That's just what it is. Because
Right.
I don't spend my time with you unless that is the ultimate goal.
And that's awesome because you're less than 30 years old, and that's rare that you would hear someone your age
Have that type of revelation.
Yeah, definitely have that revelation and that perspective about understanding the purpose of dating is to find that long-term mate, you know. And the reason why I asked that question is because it is so misunderstood, I think, not just your generation, but in a lot of other generations, because like you just said, they just go along with the philosophies of whatever the society and the world is doing and thinking it's progressing towards something when it's not. So one of the follow-up things that I would ask you then, what are some of the challenges that you see happening as you're going down that courting or that date road that people could come across, and maybe some of the things that they could do and how they can overcome them or work around them or put them in a better perspective towards developing a positive relationship?
That's a great question. So one of the major things that tends to happen in the context of, okay, we're building this relationship, we're building this dating thing, whatever we're putting together, we're building it. Obviously, you put a man and a woman, young man, young woman, whomever, in the room together, there's going to be the chance and the potential for attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes along with attraction most of the time, or a lot of the time, won't say most of the time and generalize it, but a lot of the time what happens with attraction is, okay, there's the physical piece, and then it can get murky. The waters can get murky, things get sticky, and it could go south real quick.
And let's just be honest, and that happens when you have sex.
Yes. That when you have sex, when all that gets together and it just comes together, yes, that is the moment. So I think some of the ways to mitigate that temptation is to set boundaries, is to set healthy boundaries that help both the male and the female to respect each other, and to walk in a way that is God honoring.
And, you know, I think it's so important because, you know, I think it's important for women to have boundaries. But what I love is that I'm hearing a young male say that you have to set boundaries. And so I think that, you know, you talked earlier before about preachers' kids having the reputation for being the worst. I don't believe that preachers' kids are the worst. I believe that they're the most attacked. And so if you would have to say what would be 3 of the most common attacks you have experienced as a PK, what would those things be?
That's a good question. So I think one of the things for me is just and I don't know if I can really call this an attack, but there have been multiple women that have said
speed bumps.
Speed bumps. Yeah. God has told them that they are my wife, and they're waiting for me to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing has been where women will get confused as to, okay, you know, because I tend to be a very nice guy, you know,
right.
And this is something I'm even working on to this day, with sending a good morning text to someone who I'm just cool with, but there's nothing else to it.
Right.
That's something I'm working on. But one of the ways that I have tried to counteract that misconstrued idea of what this is to, like, I try not to text young women after the hour of at least 9:30. If I know that there could be a potential thing there, I try to not text it at that particular time. So those have been a couple of attacks, but I try to keep, I'm very low key when it comes to my relationships with young women. Very low key, very intentional, and you'll know if I'm pursuing.
And you just used the word that I was going to ask about, the pursuit part. How important, talk to the people now about how important it is for the guy to pursue the woman.
Yes, biblical principle, he who finds a wife. So if he who finds, I'll finish it for those of you that may not be as familiar with that verse, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor with the Lord. Mm-hmm. So I can't I can't find something if I'm not searching for it.
Exactly.
I can't discover something if I am not on the hunt, if you will, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And men, as we all know, or as most of us know, we love a challenge.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's in our DNA.
It is. It's the way God designed you.
We love it. I enjoy it. When that time comes, and in the past when it has come, and I have engaged in the pursuit, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But the thing to remember is that particular verse is he who finds. And if I am not actively searching, and if I am not actively pursuing the woman, then I heard it said like this. I'm listening to this MP3 on servant leadership, and he's talking about business. And he says, in the context of business, he says, if you don't serve the needs of your customer, then they will go somewhere else to get their needs met.
Right.
And we can apply that principle using different language, of course, to this as well. If you are not actively showing that you are pursuing, and if she's a woman, an upstanding woman that knows her worth, she's going to go somewhere else, and you would have missed your chance.
And that's a good point, because there's a time in the season for a man to be looking, and they need to be looking for that spouse or that woman to become their wife. But I also believe that there is, while he's looking, there's things that the woman should be doing in preparation, because you notice it says she wasn't a girl, she was a wife. So that means she had to be a wife before she actually got married, which means those are some traits and some skill sets that she had already acquired before she was found. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how do you handle the dating cycle if you ever come across it with someone who is a non-Christian? Because now, even though you're in church and you may be dedicated and finding things as far as in your ministry, what happens to those people who may come across, we're in the world, and they meet someone that is not of the same faith? How do you think they should handle that or approach that from a different perspective?
So in terms of, just so I'm understanding your question correctly, so that you have the young man and the young woman, or the young woman and the young man, and they are of different faith traditions.
Faith traditions, or one is a believer and one is not. But they may have an attraction towards each other or think it's something worth pursuing.
I've heard this question multiple times, and it has been interesting to hear some of the responses that I've heard. Particularly, my opinion is that I have to go back to the word. That's where I land. That's where I hang my hat 90% of the time.
Right. And that's a good thing. That is definitely a good thing.
Yes, I got to go to the biblical principle. And the principle, how can two walk together unless they agree?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot be unequally yoked. Unequally yoked meaning, okay, if we are both of the same faith or the same background or whatever have you, then we fit together like a puzzle piece.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If we are on opposite ends of the spectrum, we don't fit. We may think we fit. On the outside, it may look like we fit, but spiritually, we are not connected.
Right.
And that is, I think, a big thing where we have to really look at, okay, what do I really want? Do I just want a wife, or do I want a spirit mate? What kind of mate do I really want? That's the question we have to ask ourselves with that particular issue.
I have a question for you, Geoffrey. So
Yes.
You said that you date to get married. And so what is, in your definition, what is the purpose of marriage? Speak to your generation about what you would say marriage is.
Yes, God is the God of the covenant. If we look throughout the Old Testament, we see a lot of his covenantal promises being made to his people. And then in the New Testament, of course, they are fulfilled. And then there is this wonderful marriage between, or this coming marriage between Christ and his bride, which is the church. These two pieces of the puzzle are going to come together. And he's coming back, as he says, for a church without spot, wrinkle, or blemish, right? So all of that language is just meaning to say, okay, Christ is looking to marry his church and to come together in union with his church at a specific designated point in time in history whenever he comes back on the scene. What does that mean for us in terms of the marital covenant? I believe that it is exactly what I just mentioned. It is a covenant. It is a covenantal bond that I believe should be based around the sanctity of not only Christ being at the center, but both persons being committed and not just having a feeling. Because you can have a feeling and feel someone emotionally and feel someone all in your heart and get the goosebumps and the butterflies, all of that. Because I know we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all had that time where we've been nervous when they come in the room and we just feel some type of way. And we really just feel like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? But I think that from what I've seen from my parents who have been married 34 plus years, it has been not just because they feel something for each other, but because they have that commitment, which is the glue to their marriage. So I think that it's beyond a feeling. It is a covenant, which is a commitment that you say, till death do me part. And I cannot see myself not only not living without them, but I have to see how I can serve them and work towards their flourishing. Because that's what it's about.
I have to give your mom and your dad a high five. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm listening. I was like, Jeff, you be honest. You've been married before, right? because the advice you're saying right now,
I know some people adults who don't know that.
Don't even glean that.
Not that you're not an adult, because
at the minor level, you just eloquently said that in such a way that I'm glad I got a recording of it. So I may have to, steal some of that, because you gave a very, very accurate and awesome definition of marriage. So give your mom and your dad, give your mom a big kiss and a hug, and say, and your dad, tell them thank you for modeling it, but also teaching it in action.
Thank you for you receiving it, because I think sometimes as parents of children who grow up in church, and I know people see where you are right now, and I know you've had, we all have crises of faith. We all have speed bumps, but it's so rewarding for me as a mom to know that I've known you since you were in high school, and to see the man you're becoming. And to me, this is what rich relationships is all about. It's about showing people that God's plan is perfect, and it does produce fruit, and it does produce his plan. And so I just want you to share something, if you have, from what you've gone through and what you've experienced with relationships, if you had to choose being married or your relationship with Christ, which would you choose?
Oh, wow. What a question. Being married or my relationship with Christ. Mm-hmm. Man, that you really put me in the corner, Renee.
Let's just be real.
Yeah, let's be real. I think, man, if I had to choose, and if Christ were to say, or someone were to say to me, okay, you can either be married for the rest of your life or have your relationship with Christ, I would have to say Christ, because the woman who I end up marrying, whenever that may be, she's not going to be able to meet every single one of my needs. Right? I would hope, and of course, as men, we hope that is the ideal, but that's just not reality.
It's not.
That is a unrealistic expectation to feel and to sense that, or to really hope for, okay, well, she's going to do everything I want all the time and everything is just going to be perfect.
Yeah, that's reality TV.
That's this reality TV. You couldn't have said it better. Reality TV. And with Christ, he feels everything, and he meets all of my needs when I need him to, and he's always on time. So I'd have to say Christ. And of course it's easier said than done. I really had that opportunity.
I really believe that when we would choose him before marriage, then we can be married. But when people think that their whole purpose for life is to be married, they will always come up short.
Wow.
And Jeff, my last question I'll ask you, and this has been an awesome conversation. I thank you for your investment in your time to hang out with us. But the last question I'll ask you is, what advice would you give both your generation as single people looking to become married? Like you said earlier in the episode, they have intimacy or they lack it, or they're looking for something and they may not be able to put their finger on it. What advice would you give them about dating in this time, things that they should be doing or working on as they are single? What should they be doing in that singleness in preparation for marriage?
I have one thing, and I really hope that your listeners, and I appreciate this opportunity. I have thoroughly enjoyed conversing with you all, and I hope and pray that the listeners are blessed richly by this conversation. One thing that I really hope that the listeners get: please do not settle. It is so easy to settle. It is so easy to say, oh, well, I'm lonely right now, or I don't have anyone to text. My phone is dry, or nobody's calling me. I don't have anyone to talk to. And say, okay, you try to resurrect dead relationships. Ooh. Or try to go and get back in that toxic relationship because you feel that loneliness and you need someone to be in your space. And now there is this cycle that you are just going on and going through. Please, whatever you do, don't settle, because who God has for you is designed specifically for you, because God made Adam, or made Eve, from the rib of Adam. It was a part of him. And so whomever God has for you, there you all are going to fit together. So please, whatever you do, do not settle. If you've been single for a while, just continue to follow and trust God. And I like what Renee said. I wrote that down. When you choose him before marriage, or before you get married, then you can be married. Choose God.
Simply put. Jeff, if any of our listeners want to hook up with you and get your CD, I'm just joking. If they want to catch up with you in the ministry, or even come and visit your home church, why don't you give them all your contact information as we wrap up this episode?
Yes, definitely. So you can reach me on Instagram at GVD2. That's GVD and 2 I's. You can also reach me on Facebook at Geoffrey Vincent Dudley. And the Vincent is spelled Vincient. And then on Twitter, you can reach me at iReactNow on Twitter as well. We're also here, if you're ever in the area, in the St. Louis metropolitan area, or you're in the Metro East area of Illinois, you can please come by 689 Scott Troy Road in O'Fallon, Illinois. Visit our church. As of now, as currently during this recording of this podcast, we are in quarantine, so we are not having services. But they are streamed at www.nlicic.org/live. So please feel free to connect with us that way. And then finally, you can reach me on my website. If you have any questions about ministry and building your ministry and organization, reactcoaching.org. You can find information on there about how we can connect that way.
And one more time, you got to give them the long name of your home church and your awesome bishop, pastor, dad. Got to give them the shout out.
Yeah.
Yes. Big shout out. Thank you for reminding me for that. Big shout out to New Life in Christ. That is the name of the church. And Bishop Geoffrey V.Dudley Sr., my father, is the pastor of the church. Awesome church, loving church. If you've ever talked to anyone that has ever gone, they'll recommend it to you, because we're just such a loving body, loving group of believers. So our doors are always open.
And don't forget your amazing mother.
Yes, my mom.
We keeping you out of trouble. Yeah, we keeping you out of trouble. That's fine.
First Lady Glenda Dudley, she is awesome. You guys can connect with her also via social media. She has a social media page on Facebook called First Lady Glenda Dudley, and you can connect with her there. she's such an awesome cook. She's one of the reasons that I'm still gaining weight. But it's all good because I still love her. She's an awesome cook, and she's teaching me how to cook. I've been cooking now for the past several months, so I'm learning, and it's a beautiful thing. So shout out to my mom.
Yeah, and Geoffrey, have really appreciated your time and hanging out with
immensely.
us. Yes, definitely. And you're always welcome to come back on and hang out with us. We gonna add you to our list of expertise when it comes to the man and the singleness on that side.
Oh, please, yes, I would love to come back. I appreciate the opportunity. You guys are awesome.
So, Geoffrey, we just want to tell you that we thank God for you. We thank God for the wife that He has prepared for you because you have chosen Him. And we love you. We love your parents, and we love your sister. Congratulations on her getting married. I think she got married a couple of years ago. We love her too.
Yes. That's my best friend.
Yeah. I know. And it's such a beautiful, you guys have such a beautiful family, and we love you, and we thank God for you. We thank God for you guys as example. And we pray that during this time of people being alone and feeling like they're isolated, that they will reach out to different ministries and get involved in the kingdom, and that people will find hope in Christ, and people will realize that God created us for Him, not for a spouse. And so we just want to thank you for being here, and we love you so much.
Yeah, love you too. Thank you all so much. Blessings to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your investment in time. Remember to subscribe to the show and hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are posted on the podcast platform that you're listening from.
Or you can always find us on our website at richrelationshipsus.com or our YouTube channel, Rich Relationships with Gil and Renee. If you found this podcast helpful, or you think it could help someone that you know and care about, please pass it along and share it with them.
And also, you can always send your questions and comments to richrelationships.us@gmail.com. This is a weekly podcast, and the new episodes are going to be posted on Monday by 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.
And I had to sing it out because that's how I feel. And I had to sing it out because your love is real. Unconditional. Always there, never run away. Lord, you are so good. Gotta lift my hands and say, you've been so good and you've been so graceful. I wanna let you know that I am so thankful. I'm staying in my word cause I wanna get to know you better.
Girl, you've been so good and you've been so graceful. I wanna let you know that I am so faithful. I'm staying in my word cause I wanna get to know you better.
Many of us claim that we wanna love the Father, but when it comes down to reading his charter, we don't bother. This scholar see his body was slaughtered, but he took his life for us. But we can't read the book that he authored, and better is what I strive to be. But in order to do this, his love letter we gotta read. So don't even worry about being straight away, cause the Father will direct our path like okay. If I was head of state, every day would be Christmas Day. And I pray that everyone would lift their hands and say, I wanna be saved and I wanna praise his name. But before we make believers, we gotta get closer to the T. God, you've been so good and you've been so graceful. I wanna let you know that I am so thankful. I'm staying in my word cause I wanna get to know you better.
You've been so good and you've been so graceful. I wanna let you know that I am so faithful. I'm staying in my word cause I wanna get to know you better.
God, you've been so good and you've been so awesome. No other place I would rather be than with my hands up at your altar. Just praising you, giving you everything you do. And I know sometimes, dear God, I make mistakes, but thank you, oh God, for the strength. I'm doing whatever it takes to be better, wiser. And in you, oh God, do I put my faith and trust. Got you been so good and you've been so faithful. I'm staying in my